All right, first step for the exhaust, I got these bolts loosened. You got to do the EXUP valve, which is like a power valve inside the exhaust. So to get to that, there's a cover here, 2 bolts. They are 5mm Allen bolts. So I got the cover off. Just remove it, and you can see the cables here, almost like a throttle cable or a clutch cable for the EXUP valve. So what you're going to do basically is just pull those cables out. You can loosen the adjusters and make it easy to pop out, just like you would, like I said, like a throttle cable on an older carbureted bike or something like that. So I'm going to get those loose, and then the actual junction of the pipe is right behind that. So then I should be able to separate the header pipe and the muffler. So we'll see how that goes. All right, a couple notes here. What I realized, for some reason, I guess I always, in my head, that I thought the EXUP valve would have been integral to the header. It would have been part of the header itself. And the reason I thought that was generally people will throw a slip-on exhaust, you know, just a muffler part. And I figured you could keep the EXUP at that point because you're really not changing the performance. You're just trying to get a little volume out of the bike. But actually, in this case, the EXUP valve is part of the muffler. So the actual pipe junction is all the way up here. Right behind, that's the pinch bolt for the connection. So the header is actually really tiny on this bike, and the muffler is going to be really long. It goes all the way back there. I guess that makes sense with you got the catalytic converter in here and room for the EXUP valve. So anyway, but I got these cables off. You just sort of loosen the nuts and this little wheel. You can turn the butterfly valve in the exhaust. It's spring loaded. It's pretty easy to release, so we should be able to pull the muffler apart right now. We'll see what happens. All right, success. Here's the old boat anchor. You can see the EXUP valves on there and the pinch bolt. So there's the 3 bolts, that one down at the end, and then 2 on the actual can itself. They're all 13mm. Then you come back to the bike. The only thing actually holding the header itself on is the 2 bolts going to the cylinder head, and they're also a 13mm. So you shouldn't have any problem pulling that off. I'm going to yank that and then we'll continue. Alright, and there it is. So just those 2 13mm bolts. The stock header pipe is actually pretty light and small, so I don't really anticipate too many weight savings from that. But the only other note I can say about this is while you have the thing off, go ahead and clean up your cylinder a little bit. I don't know if your guys' looks like mine, but a lot of water stains and pretty disgusting. It's pretty hard to clean since the exhaust is there. I don't know if you care, but while I'm here, I figure I might as well spruce it up a little bit. Not much, but I'll just wipe it off. Anyway, and then we'll get back to removing the rest of this EXUP system. So you got the cables here. You can see they run around to the other side of the bike. So we're going to get started on pulling that and install the EXUP eliminator servo module thing. Alright, coming around the other side of the bike, we're on the chain side here. You can trace the wires around in this, or the cables, and this black box here is the actual EXUP module. It's right underneath the battery. Pretty easy way to find it. So I've already disconnected the cables on the other side, as you remember from the exhaust. So I'm just going to go ahead and it looks like that these 2 8mm bolts should drop the whole unit, but we'll find out. I'll be right back. Okay, so as you can see, I was right with that. The 2 bolts dropped, and I pulled the cables out from the other side. There's a wiring harness here, which we're going to disconnect and then plug in our EXUP servo into that. The only funny thing is that this bracket here that I just took off is actually the bottom hold down bracket for the battery loop. So you need to make sure you put that back on just how it was so your battery doesn't fall off. But other than that, this thing's shockingly heavy. It's probably almost a pound alone, so I'm glad to be getting rid of it. So let's get out the EXUP plug and we'll throw that on there real quick. Alright, one more little trick here. This bracket is actually, the bolts are too long now that we removed the EXUP motor. So what we're going to have to do is thankfully this thing here has these little shims that we can pop out. Sorry about my filthy hands, this thing's covered in sand. And actually throw those on the bolt, or behind the bolt, as a washer. So I loosen this thing back off and reinstall it with these so that the bolts aren't bottomed out. And there it is, all back installed. Battery hold down is back in place. You'll see an extra wire, that's just my battery tender quick charger lead. So just ignore that. If you don't have that on your bike, that's fine. But you can see, cleared up quite a bit of space here where this motor used to sit. Took up a lot of room and weight. So it's good to get rid of that. Easier access to the shock for whatever you need to do preload adjustments or anything like that. So plenty easy. So here's the last step, our wiring harness. And let's grab the, oh, it's right here. EXUP eliminator. It's just a little tiny box here from 12 O'Clock Labs. All right, I'll be back in a moment.